You're tearing me apart, Magic! Oh, hi, Mark. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about the changing state of artifacts in Magic the Gathering. Now, I know some people get really worked up, so let's go somewhere nice and calm. We'll get a nice soothing waterfall going on so you can enjoy yourself. And this is too loud. It's too loud. Okay, forget it. We're gonna go to a nice calm little meadow and hope we don't get stung by bees or something. All right? So just chill out. The meadow of goodness. Just smell some flowers, lay down, take a nap, whatever it is you gotta do, because we're gonna talk about broken artifacts. Rosewater has indicated that more broken artifacts are headed our way. Now, is this going to be a problem for Magic the Gathering? I don't think so. Actually, I think they finally decided on a proper solution to what's going on, because for those of you who have been around on my channel for a while, whenever we end up talking, usually about banning specifically, you will hear me say that colorless is where they have the biggest problem in Magic the Gathering. Traditionally, that's where most of the banning has to happen. Because the deal is, Magic, and I said this actually when we talked about the bans for Commander and Modern. Actually, it was more specifically in regards to Modern. I talked about things being free. When things are free, casting costs are a control in Magic the Gathering, right? They tend to keep things under wraps and go, okay, you can only do this, okay, this cost, all right, but when we make things free, it's a big problem. Well, colorless has its own problems in that everybody can use it. If you look back in recent memory, most of us can recall when Smuggler's Copter had to get the boot, when they were like, okay, Smuggler Copter has to go. Why? Because it goes into too many decks. It was too powerful and it went into too many decks. So when they create problem artifacts, it causes a massive, massive issue for the game. And we've seen it a number of different times. From when they had to emergency ban Memory Jar. When Memory Jar got emergency banned, that was a big issue, right? It's just like, okay, this thing is dumb and everybody can use it. So we just need to, boom, get it on out of here. Mirrodin is another historic point of insane problems for artifacts. The Ravager Affinity nonsense that ran rampant back then was just one problem with Mirrodin. Mirrodin was an artifact block, but we had come a long way from the days of Antiquities, right? Antiquities was the first artifact heavy set, and while yes, there are some busted cards from Antiquities, overall Antiquities was like a mishmash of a bunch of garbage. Like, have you guys ever seen Tablet of Epityr? That thing is a tire fire. That's garbage. So there are a lot of garbagey artifacts back in Antiquities. Now, Mirrodin did have its own share of garbage artifacts, but it wasn't an overwhelming amount of them. In fact, Mirrodin had a lot of really, really, really powerful cards, to the point where Mirrodin warped things so much that they actually had to go ahead and change how they design sets going forward. There's a lot of people who don't like, or at least didn't. Maybe now things have changed because it's been like 20 years or something. Wow, it's crazy. It makes me feel old. Anyways, Kamogawa came along and it was a very weak and underpowered set. And people were all like, rabble, 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 rabble. I do not like this, right? They were very unhappy about the power levels. But it was required to try and bring some kind of power balance to Standard, because Mirrodin, with its crazy artifact overpoweredness, had really warped Standard in a power-heavy format. So it's crazy to me that it took this long for them to realize just how much of a problem artifacts were being, and not just artifacts, colorless cards in general as well. We saw this with Emrakul back in the Shadow of Innistrad Eldritch Moon days, where it was just like, okay, look, you need to ease off. You need to ease off with going buck nutty with the colorless cards. So basically, Mirrodin was insane. Mirrodin was absolutely insane. There's a number of different places where artifacts have been a major problem. You can see Paradox Engine's a great example from the recent Commander bans. It's like, oh no, this is too dumb. This is too dumb. You can put it in any deck. That's the problem. You can put it in any deck. There's really only one kind of artifact where one kind of artifact, sorry, that's not true. There's really only one way of designing artifacts that kind of circumvents this issue, right? Because as you've heard me say multiple times in multiple videos, colorless cards are a problem because they can go into so many decks. So if you make something that's too strong, everybody's going to use it. There's no, like, it's like Sol Ring. Imagine playing Commander and not putting in a Sol Ring. What kind of Commander deck is not going to use a Sol Ring? Sol Ring is broken good, right? It's just like a Black Lotus. You'd put that into any deck because, hey, look, any deck can play it, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. So what is the answer here? How do you fix this situation? We've been seeing them institute the answer. For those of you who haven't been around for a long time, you may not remember the Shards of Alara block, where basically they had the world of Alara had been divided out into 5 different units, 5 different like little demi-planes, right? And one of those demi-planes was Esper. And Esper was a plane that was obsessed with artifacts. And that's really where we saw the first incarnation of what's going to be the solution for Magic the Gathering in terms of artifact power issues. And that is colored artifacts. So that's the first place that we saw them really bring in colored artifacts. Now they tried to do like a colored activation with artifacts before. For example, in the Mirrodin block, we had things like Proteus Staff, where you have to pay blue to activate it, so that puts some kind of a control on it. And you had other artifacts where it was like the different shards, where you could basically pay 3 colorless or a colored mana. But again, these are all colorless artifacts with the colored tap putting some level of control on them. Now, when the Alara block came along with Shards of Alara there, that's where we saw artifacts that had colored mana costs. Now, this is interesting because colored mana costs versus colored activation costs actually mean something different. So, Proteus Staff, as an example, you do need to have access to blue mana to be able to use its ability. But when you want to actually play it, obviously you don't need blue mana, and it doesn't count as a blue card. It counts as a colorless card. But artifacts, like, for example, right now, Vivian's Arc Bow, right? That's something from War of the Spark that I'm actually a huge fan of. It is a green card. It's an artifact, but it's also a green card. So it's got green mana in the casting cost. It's treated as a green card and as an artifact. Now, the reason that they're going to be doing this going forward is it allows them to limit who can use these cards. You can only play Vivian's Arc Bow if you're playing green. And in all honesty, looking at Vivian's Arc Bow, it is an incredibly solid card. What you get, I mean, 2 mana to put out, right? It's only a green and a colorless to put out. So if it was a colorless artifact, it would be 2 colorless to put out, X and tap, pitch a card from your hand, and then look at the top X cards of your deck, pick a creature and put it directly into play. Can you imagine slapping that into whatever color? Oh, let's just go ahead and give blue this ability. Sit back with your counter spells, blue. Sit back with all your counter spells, and before your turn, pitch a land or something and grab a big fat creature. That would be insane, honestly. That would be absolutely crazy if you could just shove that into whatever deck. It really does scale up the power level of the artifacts. Now, bear in mind that this color being added into artifacts doesn't necessarily mean that the artifact themselves is going to be more stronger as a result. We're going to see that some of these colored artifacts are still going to suck a big old bag of rocks. Like, for example, Wolf Rider Saddle. I'm a huge green player. Like, I really like green cards. Wolf Rider Saddle is a piece of jank. That card is terrible. So not all of these colored artifacts are going to be OP. There's going to be a bunch of whatever. But what it does mean is going forwards, more likely we're going to see weaker, just straight up colorless artifacts. Anything that's just colorless, they'll have more of a mind of potential for abuse. So the only time you can really see a more powerful colorless artifact is when it's just more niche. Like, for example, something like maybe Graph Digger's Cage. Graph Digger's Cage doesn't need to be color aligned because that's a hoser. Graph Digger's Cage is meant to shut down graveyard strategies, but while it can go into every deck, it doesn't like boost the power level the way that insane artifacts do, right? Like, it's not like Paradox Engine where it's like, shove this into every deck. I can do all kinds of nutty stuff with this. Or a better example, Sol Ring, right? Grafdigger's Cage is an example of the type of artifacts that we will be looking at where they go, okay, you know what, we don't need to add a color to this particularly. Now, by adding colored mana to artifacts, they are encroaching on enchantments territory as well. I'm sure that you guys, some of you at least, like me, thought to yourself, wait, if they're adding in colors to the mana, then to the mana cost, and that must mean that it's getting closer to enchantments, because that's how it feels. Enchantments and artifacts inhabit a very similar design space. I mean, artifacts are more likely to have tap abilities. Enchantments there are very, very few enchantments that exist that have tap abilities. So there is that differentiator. But one of the other big ways they're going to differentiate between whether they're going to make something an artifact or an enchantment is who they want to be able to destroy and answer it. So the color pie is going to define what becomes an enchantment and an artifact more frequently, because there's certain colors that can't handle certain permanents. For example, red is not allowed to touch enchantments. Oh, no. Red is not allowed to mess around with enchantments. Red does not really have an easy and effective way to get rid of enchantments. That's been a weakness for red for the majority of the game, really, like pretty much since the very, very beginning. Red couldn't do anything about circles of protection, for example. They would have to flash fire all the lands out of existence. That's how red would handle things. So that's really going to determine the design space. In all honesty, it feels like artifacts and enchantments are going to start to feel closer and closer and closer to each other. But that's not nearly as important as having a balanced environment where things aren't out of hand. And historically, Magic the Gathering has had a massive issue with colorless cards just completely unbalancing things. So this, to me, is actually a good move forwards. It means that we can, in the future, have the power of artifacts pushed, but pulled back at the same time, where you can go, wow, this is a powerful artifact, but for red. Before it would just be like, wow, this is a really sweet artifact. Now it'll be, wow, this is a really sweet artifact if you're playing blue. Wow, this is an amazing artifact if you're playing black. That's the kind of scenario we're looking at. And while it does, I mean, there's that human reaction to change where you go, I don't like it, I don't want it. But overall, this seems like a smart move to me. It seems like a wise decision to turn around and go, okay, look. And they've had this problem for so long that I'm genuinely amazed that it took this long for a solution to show up. So overall, there's not a change to be concerned about. It should just lead to better set design in regards to artifacts. Fewer bannings, and fewer bannings is better, because bannings, especially in standard, is an incredibly feel bad scenario where you just go, okay, this is not good times. I don't like cards that have just come out and all of a sudden, oops, can't play with them. We should have play tested this more, or we screwed up. It's never a nice situation for anybody involved. So this is a good step going forwards. Now, I want to take a moment to let you guys know, for those of you who don't know, that I am streaming on Twitch with increased frequency now. We've been having fun playing Arena over there. If you want to come and hang out, my name is just Magic Historian over there. Instead, I dropped it's too, we're going more casual. We're going more casual over on Twitch. So come on by, check it out. Also, have new shirts in the merchandise area. Beautiful, beautiful logos saying things like "Together with the 6 Color Magic." That's a good one. And we're bringing the 6 color clips back, but we're just doing it in a way where you say "Together with the 6 Color of Magic." So if you want to submit a new clip, go ahead. Just make sure it's the tight "Together with the 6 Color of Magic" and leave it at that. If not, the rest will just get edited off for time concerns. So that's how we're doing it going forwards. Now, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for supporting what I do here. An extra big shout out to Scorpgeist for increasing his Patreon pledge. Thank you very much, kind sir. And remember, my friends, together we are the 6 Color of Magic.